In a small coastal town in northern Peru, something happened nearly 400 years ago that still echoes through time. A moment that transformed a village, left thousands in awe, and quietly followed one man all the way to the papacy. The place is Eton, a quiet village tucked within the lush lands of the Chiclayo province. Each year, its people come together to honor an event they believe was nothing short of miraculous. Yet, curiously, the Catholic Church has never officially recognized it. And still, the devotion never fades. So what exactly happened? The year was 1649. The date, June 2nd. The town was preparing for the feast of Corpus Christi, a sacred celebration of Christ's real presence in the Eucharist. As evening approached, the local church filled with villagers attending Vespers, the traditional evening prayer of the church. Inside the dimly lit sanctuary, Father Geronimo da Silva Manrique, a humble Franciscan priest and the parish shepherd, was following his routine. With quiet reverence, he approached the altar to return the monstrance holding the consecrated host to the tabernacle. Then he stopped. What he saw left him breathless. There, within the host, was a face. Not a symbol, not a shadow, a face. Radiant, unmistakable, the face of the child Jesus. He blinked. It didn't disappear. It was as though the host had become a living icon, as if painted with divine light. Slowly, he turned to his sacristan, Domingo Martinez. The man's expression said everything. He too was staring in disbelief. They weren't alone. Something holy was unfolding, and soon, the entire village would see it too. Father da Silva turned toward the congregation, his voice unsteady but filled with conviction. What he had witnessed was not a private vision, it was shared. One by one, the people gazed upon the host and gasped. Eyes widened, tears welled. They too saw the radiant face of the Christ child in the Eucharist. It was not imagination, it was something far greater. Realizing the weight of the moment, Father da Silva sent for the town's mayor, Don Pablo Quinoncio. When the mayor arrived and knelt before the altar, he broke into tears. The sight before him dissolved any doubt. The sacred had broken into their world, and no one could pretend otherwise. But that was only the beginning. More than a month later, on July 22nd, the town gathered again, this time to honor Saint Mary Magdalene, the patroness of Eton. The atmosphere was festive, yet reverent. Among the guests was Father Marco Lopez, the head of the Franciscan convent in nearby Chiclayo. He had come to celebrate the feast day mass, standing alongside Father da Silva. As the congregation joined in communion hymns, Father Lopez lifted his eyes to the altar. And then it happened again. At first, he saw only a faint shape within the host, a subtle outline, almost like a shadow. But as he looked closer, the image sharpened. It was the same child, just as da Silva had described, but now clothed in something different. A deep purple tunic, worn over a short shirt that ended at the chest. It was unlike any traditional depiction of Jesus they knew. But for those who understood the culture of the region, the meaning was clear. This child was appearing not just as Savior, but as a brother. A brother to the people of Eton, a brother to Peru. What astonished many even more was how the child appeared not in royal robes or garments of another land, but in the humble clothing of the local people. The mochica, an ancient indigenous culture native to this region of Peru, had traditionally worn tunics just like the one the child now wore. To those watching, the message was unmistakable. Christ had come to them not as a distant figure, but as one of their own. A neighbor, a brother, a living symbol of unity and peace. And then, something even more incredible happened. As the vision continued, 3 small shapes began to glow within the host, 3 white, radiant hearts, perfectly joined and pulsing with light. They seemed to dance gently around the face of the child Jesus. To those present, the symbolism was powerful and immediate. This was the Holy Trinity made visible: the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, all mysteriously, wonderfully present in the heart of the Eucharist. The church fell into a stunned, reverent silence. Some wept. Others dropped to their knees, unable to speak. There were no sermons, no explanations, only the unshakable awareness that heaven had touched earth right there, in their modest village, during an ordinary mass that had become anything but. The vision lasted about 15 minutes. But its impact would stretch for generations. Local religious leaders recorded everything: names, testimonies, and details. The accounts were carefully preserved and passed down, though the church never formally declared the event an official miracle. Yet for the people of Eton, there was no need for a decree. What they had witnessed lived in their hearts, and to this day, they still gather to remember that sacred visitation. To this day, the memory of what happened in 1649 is alive in Eton. On the first Saturday of every month, the town gathers to honor El Niño del Milagro, the miraculous child Jesus. It's not just a tradition, it's a living devotion. Thousands still come, drawn by faith, to pray, to give thanks, and to remember the moment when the veil between heaven and earth was lifted in their small village. And if you ever find yourself at one of these celebrations, you might notice something unusual. The statue of the Christ child wears a hat. At first glance, it may seem like a charming local detail, but there's more to it. Eton is renowned across Peru for its traditional hat making, a craft passed down through generations. So when Jesus appeared in the garments of the local Mochica people, the people responded by adorning him with a symbol of their own identity, a handcrafted hat, topped with a red and white ribbon in honor of the Peruvian flag. It's their way of saying, "He came to us as one of us, and we welcome him as our own." But what does all of this have to do with the newly elected Pope Leo XIV? As it turns out, everything. Before he wore the white of the papacy, Robert Francis Prevost served as the Bishop of Chiclayo, the very diocese that includes Eton. From 2015 to 2023, he walked among the people who carried this miracle in their hearts. He didn't just hear their stories, he embraced them. He celebrated with them. He believed with them. During his years in Chiclayo, he became a regular figure at the Corpus Christi celebrations in Eton, joining tens of thousands in honoring the Eucharist and preserving the town's cherished tradition. But he didn't stop there. In 2019, then Bishop Prevost took a historic step. He launched a formal process to have the miracle officially examined by the Church, something no bishop before him had ever dared to attempt. He also proposed the creation of a sanctuary on the very ground where the vision had occurred, a place where pilgrims could gather, pray, and remember the miracle that changed everything. In a 2022 interview back, when he was still Bishop of Chiclayo, Robert Francis Prevost spoke candidly about the importance of the Eucharistic miracle of Eton. The segment aired on Canal Orb 21 and offered a rare glimpse into his heart for the people, their faith, and the miracle that had become part of their spiritual identity. He explained how the Corpus Christi feast in Eton wasn't just a religious event, it was a movement. Each year, between 20,000 and 40,000 people gathered, sometimes filling entire stadiums to adore the Eucharist and celebrate the sacred memory of what had happened centuries earlier. But what stood out most wasn't the size of the crowd. It was what they did with the faith they celebrated. That same week, the people of Eton brought the statue of the Divine Child, the very image representing the 1649 miracle, to hospitals throughout the city. From ward to ward, it traveled not as a relic, but as a vessel of compassion. Doctors and nurses stood alongside the statue, becoming instruments of mercy. The image wasn't just admired, it was lived. In the quiet of hospital rooms, in the faces of the sick and dying, Christ's love was being made visible again. At Las Mercedes and Almanzar hospitals, patients and staff were visibly moved as the statue passed through, blessing each hallway with the silent power of faith. For Bishop Prevost, this was not an isolated gesture. It was part of a broader mission. He wasn't content to let the miracle remain a local legend. In 2019, he began the long and complex process of seeking official recognition for the event from the Catholic Church. He gathered testimonies, historical records, and theological input to build a proper canonical case, something no one before him had attempted with such clarity or dedication. But that wasn't all. He envisioned a sanctuary, a sacred space in Eton that would reflect the gravity of what had taken place. A national pilgrimage site, a spiritual landmark. He spoke of it not as a bishop building a monument, but as a people building a dream. He used every tool available: diocesan celebrations, Catholic media, community events to reignite interest in the miracle and ensure that its story reached far beyond Chicleo. He invited the laity to take ownership of the tradition, encouraging Eucharistic processions, storytelling, and communal prayer to keep the memory alive. Through these tireless efforts, Robert Prevost elevated a regional devotion into a cause with universal resonance, offering the Church a renewed opportunity to rediscover and perhaps one day officially embrace what happened in Eton. The Eucharistic miracle, he said in 2022, is a gift not just for this town, but for all of Peru. The sanctuary we dream of building, this is something we must do together. And while Rome has not yet rendered a final judgment, in the hearts of countless Peruvians, the miracle has already been sealed by faith. Many claim they've received blessings, their healings, conversions, and a deepening of love for the Eucharist. Whether recognized or not, the sacred continues to speak. Now you understand why Pope Leo is more closely connected to the Eucharistic miracle of Eton than perhaps anyone else alive today. Long before his election to the papacy, he walked among the very people who cherished this miracle, not as a distant bishop, but as a spiritual father who listened, believed, and acted. This is more than history. It's a living legacy. If this story moved you, you're not alone. Miracles tied to the Eucharist are still unfolding around the world, some known, some hidden in quiet corners of faith. And there are many more to explore. On this channel, we'll continue to uncover them, each one a sign that Christ is still with us in the most unexpected and sacred ways. If you want to go deeper, we also share shorter reflections on Eucharistic miracles on TikTok, including stories like the incredible event in Villacaner, India. You don't need an account to watch, just follow the link in the description if you're curious to see more. But let's step back for a moment. What do these miracles really teach us? They're not just stories to marvel at. They're wake-up calls, reminders of the Gospels we've heard 1,000 times and yet so often fail to truly live. Jesus didn't call us to convenience or comfort. He called us to transformation, to walk with Him daily, to love when it's hard, to trust when it hurts. It won't be easy. In fact, choosing the narrow path that leads to life will make you stand out. People may mock you. Some will hope you fail just so they can feel better about staying where they are. But don't let them pull you down. Climb anyway, even if it's inch by inch. Even if you stumble, keep rising toward the light, toward the heights Christ promises to those who follow Him with their whole heart. Because at the summit, you'll discover what the world can never give: peace, joy, and a love that never ends. And that, more than anything, is the true miracle. So don't stop. Don't lose heart. Even if progress feels small, just a single step at a time, keep going. Because over time, those steps will carry you far. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize you've gathered something far greater than success or comfort. You've stored up true treasure, not of gold or glory, but the kind Jesus spoke of. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, he said, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And how do we build that treasure? Through love, real love. The kind that forgives when it's hardest. The kind that turns resentment into mercy, sorrow into compassion, and wounds into wisdom. This isn't poetic fluff, it's the gospel in action. It's the way Christ lived, and the path he still calls us to follow. If we each take that call seriously, if we allow grace to reshape us from the inside out, then yes, the world will change. Not by force, but by light. Slowly, quietly, beautifully. That's how heaven begins to break into earth. That's how one day the world might look a little more like paradise. Until then, keep climbing, and may God go with you.